We've got a very special vid today. The United States against the world. Who would win? What do you think? Do you think the United States, the states could take on the entire world?
I know who you're gonna side with. You're gonna side with USA because you love them so much. But I think the military base is really crazy. USA will give them a good fight. I don't know who would win, but
Yeah,
it would be a decent fight.
yeah. I think in terms of like just the training, the budget. Um, I think the United States could take the world, bro. I think I,
Ru-
thi- I think they could, bro.
I
If
don't
you,
think I don't think Russia would ever try and do anything with Trump. Trump will blow them to
the thing
smithereens.
is, Russia is weak right now, bro.
Mm.
Ukraine has weakened them big time.
Mm.
Fam, they can't even defeat Ukraine, yet alone take on the United States. So I don't think Russia is a threat to the United States, in my opinion. I think China's more of a threat, though. China's more of a,
Putin is a coward, man.
how is he a coward? What do you mean?
Why are you trying to
Do you
a
even
country
do
in
you even
2025?
do you even follow politics? You just shout
No,
at
I actually do, man. My mom watches it every day.
your
So
mom.
it's
Your
good.
mom watches every day. Do you
My
watch it every
mom,
day?
my mom, bro, it's in the background, so I hear it. Let's get into the video, bro. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get in there, man. Make sure to subscribe, smash this like button, guys. Not talking like it. Let's get
Region
in there.
at a time. The United States has been the world's sole superpower since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, holding an unrivaled degree of economic and military dominance around the globe. Even today, with the rise of China, the US still remains by far the most powerful country, still far outstripping competitors in national power. It still has 3 times China's wealth and 5 times its military capabilities. And that's
Wow.
not to mention its enormous advantages in geography, demographics, and more. All things considered, it doesn't seem likely that the US is losing its status as global hegemon anytime soon. But hypothetically, what would happen if America found itself in a conflict against the entire rest of the world? Would the country still have the power to achieve victory, or would it be worn down and defeated? Today, we'll take a closer look at these questions, with a USA versus the world wargame. First, it goes without saying that such a
The,
scenario
the thing is, this isn't even insane to even compare, right? One nation against the rest of the world. That's insane. So already, this is a compliment to the United States. It's already a compliment, you know.
is extremely unlikely, if not downright impossible, during our lifetimes. Because of its diplomatic and economic ties around the world, as well as its huge arsenal of nuclear weapons, the US has almost entirely removed the possibility of real war with Europe and many other countries. But playing out the remote possibility still shows us a lot about US power and how it might look in the coming years. For the purpose of this video, we'll exclude nuclear weapons and assume that such a conflict would break out after a period of heightened global tensions rather than as a surprise
Mad.
attack. So who would really matter? The
Do,
biggest
do, do you know what MAD is? MAD,
Listen, man.
mutually assured destruction. So if the US was to use nuclear weapons, that means the world would end because other countries would use nuclear weapon, and that would be the end of humanity as we know it. you know. So that's what MAD stands for.
Wait. It doesn't say they're building this, we're building this, we're building that. And they're just that big. The is it the president or the leader? He's always testing new weapons.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure of that.
Kim Jong
Chung
Un.
Hung. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
he's the one I'm scared of. I don't know. There's something about him, man, that makes me scared. I swear down.
I would never
Kim Jong
that
Un.
country.
He comes across as that guy. Yeah, he would just wake up one morning and just press the button, bro. I just feel like he's very impulsive. I'm not worried about Trump. I'm not worried about Putin. I think Putin and Trump and even Xi Jinping, I think they are level-headed people. From what I know. With Kim Jong Un, I don't know, man, what this guy could do, bro. I swear down. He would just wake up and just say, yeah, let's end the world today.
of
You're killing
heightened
me.
global tensions rather than as a surprise attack. So who would really matter? The biggest challenges to the US in terms of actual military capability would certainly be China. Western European nations would be a close second, as they are wealthy and have stockpiles of advanced weapons and technology. While Russia, once considered to be America's main military challenger,
Russia is
its
weak.
invasion of Ukraine has made clear that the country is something of a paper tiger, especially if its nuclear stockpile is out of the equation. India is another potential player.
Oh yeah,
with
India.
the world's largest population and substantial
Yeah.
military hardware. Together, China, Russia, India, and Europe account for the majority of the world's military spending outside of the US. In our hypothetical, let's say these countries all align against the US, with the rest of the world primarily contributing materiel or financial support. While this is extremely simplified, the fact of the matter is that most countries do not have the resources to project power beyond their borders or immediate region, making an attack on the US impossible. So let's say war breaks out. The first major difficulty with a global offensive against the US would be geographic. Surrounded by water on two sides, and Mexico and Canada to the north and south, any physical attack against the US would face major challenges. First, it would mean mounting either an enormous amphibious assault from one of the coasts or attempting to invade via land. But the deserts in the southwest and the Great Lakes in the Midwest insulate the country's major population centers from a potential invasion staged from Canada and Mexico. An invasion from outside North America would require massive fronts and long supply chains across the Pacific or Atlantic Oceans, leading to a dramatic reduction of overall power projection. Military expert Dylan Lurk has noted that even the largest amphibious assault in history on either the west coast or the east coast would be too insignificant to acquire an effective beachhead. If every foreign power managed to coordinate such a massive operation, and do so while remaining undetected under the enormous reach and power of the American intelligence apparatus, it would still have issues building up a force of any significant size before being pushed back into the sea. In addition, the strategic Hawaiian island chain acts as a gateway to the US mainland for attacks from the Pacific, and is protected by a significant military presence. Similarly, military installations in Alaska provide protection against any invasion from along the Arctic or Northwest.
Is it because I think Alaska is quite close to Russia, bro, and I believe the US purchased Alaska. They purchased it, and I'm sure they did it for good reasons. It's to gain control of that area, because if they didn't have control of this area, Alaska, Russia could easily, because I think this is Russia. I could be wrong. I think this is Russia. So that was a clever move to purchase Alaska and gain control of it. By the way, Alaska used to be part of Russia.
I didn't know that. So that's
Yeah,
good.
it used to be part of Russia, bro. Yeah.
How many
man,
years ago are you talking?
I don't know the specific date, but like I know the US purchased Alaska from Russia, bro. That's all I know. That's all I know. But yeah, this video clearly, makes it obvious that it's impossible to attack the states via sea. It's impossible. These men are advanced in every area, bro.
Similarly, military installations in Alaska provide protection against any invasion from along the Arctic or Northwest. An attack from Mexico would probably be more feasible due to the Great Lakes blocking much of the Canadian border. But California and Texas have the largest concentration of defense industries and military bases in the country, thus
good reasons.
providing an effective deterrent from any attack. With the southwestern desert spanning the two regions, the Southwest is also home to multiple heavily armed military bases, such as the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico or NORAD headquarters in Colorado. An attack launched from Canada on the Midwest or the West would be limited to light infantry and would likely fail to take over population centers or other important strategic points, since there is mostly rural farmland and unpopulated national parks along the border, along with air bases located hundreds of miles south. Dr. Beckley makes this point as well, stating that the United States is a natural economic hub and military fortress. It's packed with resources and has more economic arteries like navigable waterways and ports than the rest of the world combined. And even if the US military was unable to stop an invasion, the huge diversity of terrain would also provide US military personnel or militias with the ability to conduct guerrilla warfare. The US is also by far the most heavily armed civilian population in the world, with a...
That's a very good point, but Mike. That's a very good point. If you're going to war with the US military, you're going to war with the rest of the United States, and these men have more weapons than any other country, bro.
Imagine,
You know,
not even
Mike.
people, imagine people not even the army. They're like, nope, I'm bringing
Yep.
out my best weapons. Everyone's, you
Yes.
come invade us, you're going to die. today."
Yep, it's bro. Like I'm telling you, these men are impossible to invade. they're impossible. You know, with the UK, like, you know, every citizens, you know, in the UK rely on the UK military, bro. Without the UK military, we are finished, Mike, right? Imagine if, like, for example, Russia tried to invade the UK. The citizens are finished, but this is not the same for the States. You know, I don't think. Because these men are very patriotic. They love their country. They are willing to die for the United States. And they are armed, you know, so...
and armed and dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, bro.
Military personnel or militias with the ability to conduct guerrilla warfare. The US is also by far the most heavily armed civilian population in the world, with a staggering 120 guns for every 100 people. This means that even if a coalition of other countries was able to actually get troops into the US,
that's a military in itself.
Facing an incredibly well-armed and pissed-off insurgency. On the other hand, over the past 80 years, the US has developed a worldwide infrastructure of military bases, supply lines, and the world's largest air and naval transport fleets. This contains hundreds of ships and aircraft, more than the entire fleet of most countries. The lack of global mobility would be an enormous issue for any coalition facing the US. In the weeks before the sort of global conflict in our hypothetical, the US would most likely pull its forces out of the most vulnerable, non-American bases in Europe, Asia, and the Pacific, concentrating its resources in places where the US exercises greater territorial control to act as staging areas. Some areas would be considered too important to abandon, especially those supporting the military supply chain, US oil assets, and key territorial choke points. One of the first battlefields in any conflict between the US and the rest of the world would be the Middle East. Here, one major aim of the DoD, as carried out by US Central Command, would be to secure critical US oil refineries and distribution centers, as well as gain control of the sea lanes used for transporting oil out of the region. As of 2022, 80.4% of the world's oil reserves are located in countries belonging to the international oil cartel OPEC, and 67.1% of OPEC reserves are in the Middle East. Similarly, over 60% of the world's oil passes through shipping lanes in the Arabian Sea alone, while the US
I think that's a Suez Canal. It's a very important route for transportation. I could be wrong, but I think that's the Suez Canal.
Oil passes through shipping lanes in the Arabian Sea alone. While the US has reduced its presence in the region in recent years, a global conflict would almost certainly cause a reorientation. Possessing the world's 12th largest oil reserves means that the US could theoretically go self-sufficient in wartime, but control of some Middle Eastern reserves would make guaranteeing its supply much easier. Similarly, it would allow the US to deny oil to much of the rest of the world, and undermine the coalition's economies and military production. Europe, which would represent the US's most significant adversary, receives a significant amount of its crude oil and natural gas from the Middle East. This means that US military control of the region would harm Europe's ability to sustain a war effort for any extended period of time. China would face a similar issue, as over half of all its oil comes from the Middle East, making the region among one of the most likely fronts in a global war with the...
No wonder why there has been so many wars in the Middle East, Mike, right? So many wars, bro. No wonder. It makes sense, because if the vast majority of the world's oil is located in that area, there's going to be there's inevitably it's going to be conflicts. You know.
All of them. Why do you think that's? Bro, they don't, why do you think the Middle East are so rich? They don't declare their wealth, bro. They are.
Yes.
There might be a trillionaire.
Yeah, for sure. The royal family, the Saudi Arabian royal family, fam. These men are multi-billionaires, fam. I'm telling you, they're living the life. You know, they're living the life, fam.
Of all its oil comes from the Middle East, making the region among one of the most likely fronts in a global war with the US. At the start of the conflict, the US would first strike at oil-related facilities across the Middle East, using carrier-based strike aircraft plus medium and long-range ballistic missiles. US power projection means that even without bases in Afghanistan, the military could easily hit targets anywhere from the Mediterranean to the Strait of Hormuz. While regional powers could offer some resistance, none of them have anywhere close to the manpower or firepower needed to stop the US in an all-out war. While Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and several others do have modern fighter jets and other weaponry, even they would not last very long up against the might of the DoD. And because each is an independent country, intelligence and resource sharing among them would also be limited, further reducing the region's ability to stand up to the US
Language
in a
barrier as
shooting
well.
war. Most of their assets' signals would also likely be jammed by America's powerful electronic warfare capabilities, which would disrupt enemy communications, targeting, and guidance systems across the region. The greatest threat to US control of the Middle East in our scenario comes from ground-based air defenses, as even older systems can shoot unsuspecting fighter jets from the sky. However, unlike Russia's recent experience in Ukraine, the US has actually proven that it can effectively destroy another nation's air defense network, as it did during Desert Storm in the 1990s. Today, this might be even easier due to the enormous arsenal of drones the US has access to. Most US losses in the air would likely come from such drones, as well as fourth-generation jets like the F-15, while its more modern F-18s and F-22s could evade all but the best air defense systems. After establishing air superiority, the US would then work to control all choke points into and out of the region, especially the easily blocked Suez Canal, where over 12% of global trade passes through. If it was able to effectively keep regional control over the Middle East and its resources, the US would have a decent shot at winning against the rest of the world. A second major battlefield...
Mike, this is insane, bro. Because I can clearly see where this video is going. It's like the US could actually win, bro. Right? That's ridiculous. How have we allowed the United States to become this powerful?
I feel like you don't win, but they won't get how.
Mike, get closer to the mic, but make sure you adjust your mic properly, because your voice keep cutting. Yeah, try to get as close to it as possible, bro. Yeah, go on.
You see how Russia v Ukraine just keeps going on. I just don't feel like they'll be able to be different. So doesn't mean to win, but it'll just be an on fight that will never stop until someone calls.
Yeah. Your voice is cutting off, Mike. I don't know what's going on with your mic. You there?
I'm here, bro.
Yeah. Your voice keep cutting off, bro. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, this is insane, bro. That one country, man, is this powerful. It's like the United States is like a whole continent on its own. Literally a whole continent, bro. I see the United States as like an extension of Europe. It's very like just Europeans, just Europe, but in a different area, It's crazy.
Regional control over the Middle East and its resources, the US would have a decent shot at winning against the rest of the world. A second major battlefield would be the Pacific, where the US would probably use its fleet to keep China and other East Asian nations contained and stop them from attacking the West Coast. This could mean either a blockade of major trade and supply routes, as well as using islands like Hawaii and Guam to stage its own offensives. It would also utilize its fleet of aircraft carriers heavily in the Asia-Pacific region. As of this video, there are 47 aircraft carriers around the world. The largest 11 of these are all nuclear-powered carriers belonging to the US, which have more than twice the combined total deck space of every other country combined. The Pacific Fleet fields 7 of these, and in a global war could use them to deny access to anything approaching the US mainland. Again, oil would be another top concern, and the US could use its massive navy to gain control of the Strait of Malacca, which carries up to 40% of the world's trade every year. While less easily choked off than the Suez Canal, a US blockade of this waterway would also devastate most economies in Asia, giving the US serious economic leverage over China, India, and others. The US would also likely exert its naval power in the South China Sea, which it could use to launch strikes against China, Japan, the Philippines, or any other regional power. Heavy fighting would ensue across the sea and air domains all around the South China Sea, and could account for the heaviest US casualties in any theater of this hypothetical war. Another potential target is Taiwan, where over 90% of the world's advanced...
If you need me to pause the video, just let me know, bro. Yeah.
Microchips are currently fabricated. The US might even need to seize and try to occupy the island to stop the global coalition from dominating the production of modern electronics. To do so, the US would inevitably have to challenge China as well. Chinese air defenses and ballistic missile capabilities are already powerful alone, and if combined with the assets of every other country in the region, could potentially pose a problem for the US. The naval base on Guam would be especially vulnerable to strikes by ballistic missiles, which could overwhelm its limited air defenses. Even so, the US Navy is so powerful that every country in the East Pacific combined would be occupied with fending it off, and probably could not launch their own strikes on the US mainland. And
That's
because the
insane,
US Navy is larger than those of the next 8 countries combined, it could
What?
easily fight in 2 or 3 theaters at once.
Mike, did you hear that, bro? The Navy is larger than the other 8 countries combined. You know, bro, you know the US is leading AI right now. They are the leading countries when it comes to AI.
They're the best.
Absolute best. You know, I watched a podcast, yeah, on do you know Diary of a CEO?
No.
There was one AI expert guy. He spoke about how in the future humanoid robots could replace like soldiers basically. And so with the US leading AI, imagine how powerful they could become in the future, bro. They could become too powerful for the rest of the world. I swear down. It's really unfair, man. I swear down. I wish I was an American citizen. So I swear down.
Countries combined, it could easily fight in 2 or 3 theaters at once, making simultaneous blockades of Europe, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific a real possibility. Another aspect of a global war would involve submarines, which unsurprisingly the US has more of than almost anyone else. Its fleet contains 53 fast attack submarines, 14 nuclear-capable ballistic missile subs,
Wow.
and 4 guided missile subs. Even without using the world-ending nuclear capabilities of an Ohio-class submarine, this massive fleet would allow the US to launch stealth attacks on enemy naval vessels anywhere in the world, completely undetected. While America would be far more hard-pressed to fend off a global coalition on the ground, at sea, the US stands a much better chance of victory. A third global area of battle would be the Americas, where the US would have the greatest ability to marshal forces and project power. And because Mexico, Canada, and other countries in the region are far less powerful, there is a good chance the US could blockade, control, or destroy the majority of their military and economic resources. Canada and Venezuela are both obvious targets because of their status as oil producers, and in a global war the US would probably aim to shut down or take control of resources in both. Another obvious target is the Panama Canal, which serves as the gateway between the Atlantic and Pacific, and where 40% of all US container shipping flows through. The US controlled the canal from 1903 to 1979, and would try to seize it again during a global war. This would also provide a choke point against the militaries of Central and South America. Chile is another potential target as the country supplies 28% of the world's copper, critical for the production of modern electronics. Now, obviously, a hypothetical alliance of every other country in the world would have the numerical advantage in overall troops and economic resources. But keep in mind that as of 2022, US military spending was $877 billion.
Mike, look at the spending, bro. Almost $1 trillion. That's more than most company. I said most companies, most countries' GDPs, bro.
That's silly.
I swear down.
Just on war and just on military stuff, bro.
Just on military stuff. It's insane. And I think this year or last year, I think it was even more than that. I think it was like 900.
That was 2022, bro.
Yeah, and I think it goes up most years, bro. You know, so as much as they're very powerful, they're in huge debt as well. You know, Mike.
America.
States. Yep, they've got the largest. They've got the biggest debt in the world. Trillions of dollars in debt. You know.
US military spending was $877 billion, constituting 40% of the global total and more than the next 10 countries combined. Today, this enormous sum still only accounts for about 3% of the country's GDP. In a global war, this percentage would almost certainly increase and could rise to similar levels as World War II, when US military spending accounted for over 40% of national GDP.
How could they be in debt then?
Today, that would mean somewhere.
How could they be in debt?
Bro, I don't know much about economics, but it's just, bro, they keep printing money, bro. The Federal Reserve, which is like the Bank of England, I think it's the UK's version of the Federal Reserve. I think it's the Bank of England. They keep spending, bro. They keep printing money to fund their military stuff. And when you keep printing money, and you know, I know obviously like some of you guys know better than me. You know, I know some people in the comment. I can already anticipate what people are going to say in the comments. Or you're talking nonsense. You don't know what you're talking about. You know, listen, it's my opinion, innit? I'm allowed to yap on this channel. You know, but I think the reason why the serious debt is because it's just high spending, bro. You know, imagine, Mike, if you got, you know, imagine you keep spending and spending more than you're saving, bro. You're gonna be in debt.
You're right.
Yeah, so I think that's what they're doing.
Close to $10 trillion a year in military spending from the US alone, nearly 5 times the global total from 2022. Astronomical numbers like these mean that a war of attrition against America would also be likely to fail, as the country could outspend the rest of the world several times over for many years.
Outspend the rest of the
To gain
world.
a true strategic edge over the US, a global coalition would have to somehow outgun and outspend the Defense Department, while also maintaining their own smaller economies. Another crucial domain in a global conflict with the US would play out in cyberspace. This would probably be the first line of contact between the warring parties, as both sides would attempt to gain information superiority and take each other's systems offline. While US Cyber Command would almost certainly be overwhelmed with attacks by many actors at once, America could also use its own highly effective attacks to shut down enemy power grids, computer networks, weapons, electronics, and much more. And while it's not as dominant in cyberspace as in the real world, the US still has by far the most capable and best funded capabilities in the world. In the 2024 fiscal year, US cyber spending will rise to more than $25 billion, and the country continues to top every ranking of national cyber power. However, this domain would also be one of the biggest dangers to the US in a global war, as cyber attacks are notoriously difficult to predict and defend against. A well-placed cyber attack by a less powerful nation could still be catastrophic, and would probably be a more serious immediate threat to US citizens than a kinetic strike on the country. However, again, we have no way of knowing how much American cyber spending would increase in a total war, or how quickly that would lead to new capabilities. All the elements point to a big conclusion. The US is so powerful that it could take on the rest of the world for weeks or months with no certain winner. Because of this, such a hypothetical conflict would likely become a war of attrition in both the physical and digital worlds. The US would work to starve the world's other major powers of oil, war supplies, and other vital resources, while attempting to preserve its own. A true assault on the US mainland would be...
I mean, well, according to this video then, it's not even a competition between China and America when it comes like military...
For blow them out the war.
Because if they can take on the rest of the world, including China, then it can take on China, you know, by itself, right?
It's a head easy.
It's crazy. Unbelievable, bro.
Resources, while attempting to preserve its own. A true assault on the US mainland would be extremely difficult because of the country's size, geographic positioning, and incredibly well-armed military and civilian population. Because of the US military's global presence, most of the fighting would likely happen elsewhere, opening theaters of war everywhere from the Middle East to South America and East Asia. In the end, the victor would almost certainly be whichever side could outlast the other, both in terms of military and economic resources. While the scenario of America versus the entire world is obviously an absurd one, it does give us a useful picture of just how powerful the US military really is. With resources greater than those of most individual countries and nearly limitless power projection, even a conventional conflict against the US would be very hard to achieve true victory. Add in the country's continued dominance in cyberspace, and it's not all clear whether the rest of the world would actually be able to win such a war. And all of the speculation above excludes the most powerful part of the equation: nuclear weapons. Because of the principle of mutually assured destruction, no country really wants to use them today.
By the way, I think Russia have more nukes than the US, you know.
Oh, wow.
I swear on Russia. But the thing is, most of their nukes apparently are quite like old, you know, like, you know. But like nukes is nukes anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's from like the 19th century or that, you know. It's still going to cause a lot of damage.
The weapons. Because of the principle of mutually assured destruction, no country really wants to use them today. However, it's
Yeah.
worth noting that the US has over 1,400 actively deployed nukes, and in any real global conflict,
That's a lot.
they could be used to give any non-nuclear country a very permanent end. And even in a very distant hypothetical like the one above, we should remember that the cost of human life in any worldwide conflict would be staggering, and that even winners in such a war would suffer. But what do you think? Would the US really be able to win a war against the rest of the world? Or would the country eventually be overwhelmed?
I don't think it's as simple as this video depicts it, though. I think there's so many other things that you got to take into account, right, Mike?
There'd be no winner, basically.
There'll be no winner. So you don't think, like, in the long run, the rest of the world wouldn't win?
Yeah. You look. Let's take Russia. Like, their has been ruined.
Yeah.
Their respect in the war has been ruined. They can't trade with other people.
Yeah.
Sell to other people. Like, he's ruined Russia, bro. And war doesn't really. There's no winner from war, man. It's just
Facts.
war is just terrible, man. Honestly,
it's terrible, man. It's seriously. You know, it's just, for me, war it's caused by self-identification, bro. Ultimately speaking,
war's always about greed and money, man, and just trying to overpower someone, bro.
No, the thing is, for me, Mike, it's caused by self-identification. When you say, "Oh, I'm a Brit," you're American, you're black, you're white. What does that mean? It causes it makes people feel like they're different from each other, right? And when people feel like they're different from each other, it creates division. And when it creates division, that's when you get conflict. So, when we start understanding that we're human beings, fundamentally speaking, we are just human beings. Whether you're Chinese, whether you're American, you're European, fundamentally speaking, we're human beings. Once this sinks in people's heads, we're going to have less conflicts, bro.
Amen.
But I don't think it's possible, though. Humans, their ego and greed and stuff like that will never allow it to happen. Innit? So that's the thing. But guys, do you want to say anything else?
Let's say no to war, man. Everyone be peaceful, please.
Yeah, man. Yeah, especially fam. Those nukes do scare me, though. Those nukes.
1,400 nukes. One of them can ruin. One drop in the UK, we're all dead.
Fam, the UK is too tiny. The UK is fragile. It's fragile. But talking about the UK. Do you know the UK used to control the US? Like, the US used to be under the UK control. So I don't know how the UK done it, bro. Like, how can the UK?
Maybe.
Fam, the UK had the biggest empire in the world, bro.
Bro, they were big time, innit?
I don't know how a tiny country can have so much power. It doesn't make sense.
Word.
But yeah, guys, we really appreciate the support. I know you're gonna disagree with us with many points. You're gonna disagree with the video. I already know what's coming. We don't mind. We like the difference in opinions.
Yeah,
let us know in the comments.
We're building a community in the comment section, so feel free to say whatever you like. If you want to batter us, if you want to belittle us, it is what it is. We take it on the chin, man.
Yes. But yeah, that's it, guys.